I was particularly interested in reading the book that Bruce Perry co-authored with Oprah Winfrey in 2021 around this question of what happened to you, conversations on trauma, resilience and healing. I was interested in this because Oprah Winfrey has been a friend of Bruce Perry for more than 30 years and is also a survivor of a great number of adverse childhood experiences and committed a large portion of her life to working through trauma and understanding the complexities of it. She also represents a perspective of a Black woman in a world, especially psychological, academic world that is full of older white males. So I was very interested in watching interviews and reading the book that they have co-written together. And in this book, they both talk about how our brains are wired for connection and how healing from trauma comes from being present and forming connections. And he talks about how our brain catalogues these connections and they can actually heal the effects of trauma. And a collective catalogue of those connections that we form ends up colouring the lenses through which we see the world. So this is particularly interesting to me as I work with children in a school setting as a teacher. All of the children I work with have come from backgrounds of trauma. So having that in mind, even the short amounts of connections in the day, positive connections, positive interactions, building a classroom that helps children regulate and relate and reason and have a sense of predictability and safety was very important to take away from that. He talks about the 6 R's being relating, resourcing, repatterning, reprocessing, reflecting, and resilience. He also talks about the brain being like a 4-layered cake, and in order to get to the cortex, which is the top level of the cake and controls things like empathy and self-control and literacy, we need to first start at the bottom. So it's very much a bottom-up approach. The bottom of the cake represents the brain system, the brainstem and the regulatory system, the stress response, our breathing and our heart rate. So this is where a lot of the trauma is held, in heightened heart rate, sense of anxiety, tight chest, shallow breathing, etc. The next level up in our brain is the midbrain, which is responsible for movement and coordination. So this is where somatic practices come into play, where we need to actually move our body to activate that midbrain. Next layer up is the limbic system, which is the emotional response, the fight and flight, freeze. And then finally we can access the prefrontal lobe and cortex, which is the empathy, self-control and literacy, where students are ready to actually learn. This demographic here, this infographic, here, first one is brain calming activities that all connect with the 6 R's, which are helping children or clients relate, resourcing, repatterning, reprocessing, reflecting, and building resilience. And there's just some examples of activities to help with that process. I also found Bruce Perry's hand model for flipping your lid helpful in explaining to children about how the brain works and the big feelings the downstairs brain and the upstairs brain. And that quote there, using your upstairs brain to gently hug big feelings, once again to create that sense of connection and safety.